everyone. Today I'm going to be talking about the 12 most useful websites for learning Japanese. Now, these websites are going to be split into 3 sections. First is the dictionary section. Next is the Japanese language section in terms of like grammar and vocabulary. And finally, the last part is the Japanese content section, where to actually find content in Japanese. So without further ado, let's get started. The first website I'm going to be talking about is called jisho.org. It is quite possibly the most famous and most widely used dictionary. It is simply a Japanese to English dictionary. For example, look up a word, and it'll give you the English meaning of it. It'll also give you some words that are related to your original search, if it applies to the word. You can also search not only for words, but individual kanji. You can search for sentences, which will give you a lot of example sentences. Very good for kind of getting a better sense of the word rather than just looking at a definition. You can even draw kanji, or if you don't know how to draw it or know how to write in kanji, you could search by radicals, and it might take a while, but it's definitely a useful feature that this website has. As I said, this is probably the most widely used dictionary, and for a very good reason. It's a very good website. I could find what I'm looking for basically 100% of the time. It's a very solid website that I would recommend. Next is another dictionary. This one I believe is actually made by like a Japanese company. But let me actually search up a word so you can see the difference in this website. So as you can see, this website is a bit different than jisho.org. Jisho will give you a little bit more when it comes to like synonyms and stuff. It'll give you like some info on the kanji, while as this website will kind of just give you a bunch of English translations. But what I really like about this website, and what I really think the most useful part, is it'll give you a lot of phrases related to it. So it'll give you a lot of other words or other phrases that contain your original search. I think it's very good for looking up like grammar, structures, and stuff like that. I will say though, I probably use Jisho way more than this website. I use Jisho as my main dictionary, and then this one as kind of a secondary, but it's still a nice secondary to have. Next, we're going to move on to the Japanese language section. We're going to start by looking at a grammar guide, Take-Him's Grammar Guide. This one is similar to Jisho, quite possibly the most famous grammar guide on the internet for Japanese, and again, for a pretty good reason. It's very well organized, it's pretty easy to understand, has pretty good explanations, and you could really start right from the very beginning. I mean, if you don't even know how to read the kana, there's a section, the writing system over here, where you could start from the very beginning. But really, the crux and the meat and potatoes of this website is going to be the basic grammar section, the essential grammar section, and the special expressions. I don't really think that advanced topics is too important or useful, and you'll see why in the next website that I actually talk about. But as a general rule, Take-Him's Grammar Guide is very useful for basic stuff. And if you're really starting with zero knowledge on the grammar system, then Take-Him is definitely a great way of getting acclimated to the language. And the next website This is a master, you can see right here, it's a master reference for basically like every single grammar pattern that exists in Japanese. Not literally every one, but there's enough where it makes sense. If you click on the grammar pattern, it'll give you some info like what it means, an English translation, and then a bunch of example sentences, and even some explanation if some deeper explanation is required. Now, this website is definitely not as refined or as organized as Take Him. It's, as I said before, it's a reference. It's not exactly a guide. However, the reason that I recommend before that you don't study advanced topics is because I think stuff like that is best left for this grammar pattern list. I am very much of the belief that grammar patterns, in order to study grammar, you just study grammar patterns and memorize them instead of memorizing rules. So really, what I believe is this Take Him's grammar guide is very good for, the basic stuff. Nouns, adjectives, adverbs, verbs, particle, like what are particles, particle uses, fundamental stuff of the language. But once you get past that, I truly think that this master reference table is your best shot at increasing your knowledge of more advanced topics. And finally, for the Japanese language section, we have the Japanese Frequency Dictionary. This is good for, obviously, vocabulary. I believe it has the most used 5,000 words in the language, and this is very useful because I think something like the top 1,000 words of a language are used like 80% of the time, and I think it's like 1,000 words fits that criteria. Now, of course, if you perfectly memorize this sheet of 5,000 words, you're not going to be fluent because there's more to language than just knowing words. But it'll definitely give you a huge advantage when it comes to engaging in Japanese content and getting your comprehension rate up. It's quite simply, the more words that you know, the more you can pick them out in your comprehension, and the more you can actually learn the true meaning of those words, understand what you're watching, and then use those words in everyday speech. So again, this won't get you to fluency, but it'll be very, very useful in getting you there. So that's it for the Japanese language section. Now we're actually going to talk about Japanese content. The first website we're going to look at is called AnimeLon. And what this website is essentially an accumulation of a bunch of anime, but these shows contain matching Japanese subtitles with them. Let me just click on a random show to show you what I'm talking about. So here you can load a transcript of all the lines of this specific episode. Let me actually pick a line with subtitles. See, you could customize the subs. So there are 5 different subtitles you could choose from: katakana, hiragana, romaji, English, and Japanese. However, I would highly recommend clicking off of romaji first, because if you don't know you have to know how to read Japanese in order to read Japanese. You have to know the script. You can't rely on romaji. I think it's maybe good for the first day when you're learning how to read the script in hiragana and katakana, but that's about it. And I also think you should click off of hiragana and katakana, because, as I said, you have to learn how to read Japanese, and real Japanese uses kanji. You can't just rely on hiragana and katakana when you're trying to read something, because they require you know how to read kanji. So really, I would just recommend using the Japanese subtitles. As for the English subtitles, if you're in the very beginning stages, and I mean like maybe the first couple weeks, and you're really just having a hard time with comprehension, you're not understanding anything, it's just becoming a burden, then okay, I guess you could turn on the English subtitles, but I would not get used to this, because you're really going to want to turn these off after a little bit, because again, you can't be relying on English while you're trying to learn Japanese. That's not the way it works. And heck, even after a while, you're going to want to get rid of the Japanese subtitles, and you're going to want to increase or strengthen your listening abilities. But that's a little bit further down the road. For now, it's definitely fine if you use Japanese subtitles. And really, the main advantage of these subtitles, is that not only does it make your comprehension better, because reading is just easier than listening, because it's just easier to read. I mean, that's kind of just the way it is. But this website has a built-in dictionary into it, a pop-up dictionary, so you can click on words and it'll basically give you a definition. Now, of course, you can copy and paste into either of these two dictionary websites. It's perfectly fine. In fact, I think that these dictionary websites give more accurate definitions than this pop-out dictionary, but it's still good enough. But I will say the pop-up dictionary definitely is more convenient. You don't want to have to copy and paste every single time you see a word you don't know. Sometimes it's just easier to click on something and read it. So yeah, this website does have a lot of shows. It doesn't have every show. It probably has maybe like over 100, but even though it's not a ton, it's definitely enough to get the job done. You could definitely find some shows that you enjoy on this website. And if you don't, you can actually use Netflix, which is our next website. Quick word of warning. Netflix, American Netflix, you can find some shows with Japanese subtitles, but this is very rare. A lot of the times you'll find like even anime on American Netflix. You'll find an anime, but it'll only have English subtitles. It'll have the Japanese audio, but it will only have English subtitles, not Japanese subtitles. This is not what we want. We don't want to use English subtitles. So what I did is I invested in a VPN and changed my location to Japan. And what this will do is allow you access to Japanese Netflix, and it'll give you basically their entire catalog, which includes Japanese subtitles. Not only can they have everything. They have anime, they have dramas, they have documentaries, movies. Heck, they even see here they have American or English movies that are dubbed in Japanese and have Japanese subtitles. Batman, Spider-Man, Ted, Back to the Future. This section is especially useful because you could go back and watch shows in Japanese that you've already seen in English, so that your comprehension rate goes up and you can actually understand what's going on in the show. Again, there's not a ton to say about this. I mean, I'm sure most people know what Netflix is, but making an investment in a VPN definitely is worth it, because you will have a much greater access to not only shows, but also subtitles. And as I said before, subtitles make things easier for not only your comprehension, but for looking things up. And again, eventually you are going to want to turn off these subtitles completely, but in the beginning, or even not even just beginning, pretty far down up until, it's definitely alright to use subtitles. Next website. I just discovered this website a couple days ago, and I have been in love with it. It is extremely useful. It's called Apema. Now, unfortunately, like Netflix, it does require a VPN to set your location to Japan. It does not allow you to use it in America. However, I very much think that investing in a VPN is worth it for this case. Unlike Netflix, in which you have to pay for the VPN and then a Netflix account, Apema is free. All you have to do is pay for the VPN, and then you have access to the free perks of this website. And what this website is essentially live TV. There's the channels here. It's not a ton of channels, but it's definitely a decent amount, enough to get the job done, enough to find something that you might be interested in. They have channels on anime, they have news, they have specials, drama, radio, sports. Again, not a ton. You aren't going to have hundreds of on-demand channels, but it definitely is a good amount. So you can click on a show, or click on a channel, and yeah, you could watch what's on. Now, unfortunately, there are no Japanese subtitles. You are going to have to rely exclusively on your listening abilities. But as I said, you're going to have to do that anyway, so it's good to get a head start. Now, there is a premium. You can purchase a premium account in the free version, where you're kind of limited to what you're watching, because the show you have to be on, the show you want to watch has to actually be on live during that time. If you purchase a premium account, you have access to their entire catalog of TV shows and movies, so you can watch whatever, whenever you want. But again, that's the paid version. If you want to just suck it up, I guess, and be limited to what you watch, and be limited to watching live stuff, and not being able to rewind and stuff, the free option is definitely enough to get the job done. So you definitely do not have to purchase a premium account. The free version is 100% fine. And I basically always find stuff that I find interesting. So these three websites were more for video and movies, TV shows, stuff like that. Our next resource is for reading, and it's surprisingly Wikipedia. Wikipedia is surprisingly useful for reading. Kind of just scrolling through articles and reading what's there. Even if you don't understand everything, you're definitely going to find articles where you understand stuff. For example, what I like to do is I like to read articles on the stuff that I'm actually watching right now. So for example, I'm watching a show called Denpa Onna to Seishun Otoko. And what I'll do is just I'll read like this introduction part, which tells you a little bit about the history. And then, there's a plot section here, there's the character section. And again, since I'm watching the show, I have a kind of idea of what's going on, which, believe it or not, makes reading not easy, but it definitely makes it easier, because you have a sense of what's going on. And you don't have to just do this for TV shows. You could do it for, other stuff if you know basically anything. And basically anything you want. It's Netflix. It's Wikipedia. Wikipedia has millions of articles. There's tons of stuff you could read about. There's tons of stuff you already know to look up, and there's tons of stuff you don't know that you could look up. So again, it might be surprising, but I definitely found that Wikipedia is an underrated source for this. Now, if you actually want to read, books and actual literature, this next website might be good for you. It is called Alfera Bunko. Now, this website is a little strange because it only contains books of authors who lost their copyright status. So it's basically an accumulation of older classical books. I believe for Japanese law, it's like 70 years after the author passes away, they lose their copyright. And once they lose their copyright, you can find it for free on this website. Now, again, since it has to be 70 years after they pass away, you're not going to find any newer books. You're going to find, some of the classics, some of the stuff that basically every Japanese person has at least heard about. 人間資格, 我が輩は猫である, 心, those type of books. So what you do is just go up here, I search it up, 人間資格, and boom, you have the entire book for free right here. Definitely a great resource to use, especially since it's free. You don't have to actually pay for these books, and it's legal. If these books don't do it for you, maybe you want to read like light novels, maybe you want to read manga, some newer books, then this next website might be for you. Kinokuniya. Kinokuniya is a Japanese book. It's a bookstore that's based in Japan. However, they do have multiple stores throughout the United States, physical stores. But in addition to those physical stores, they have an online store which will basically ship to you. I don't know if they ship everywhere in the US. I'm pretty sure they do, but they ship to me. So, yeah, this website has like everything. They have manga. Well, actually, that's the English section. This is the Japanese section. Yep, see, they have tons of manga. Honestly, their catalog is quite ridiculous. They have everything. You could find what you're looking for like 99% of the time. I don't think I've ever not found anything that I've looked for on this website. They have a light novel. Look one up. Yep, light novels. Heck, they even have regular novels. Yep, they have regular novels. They have everything. Manga, light novels, regular novels. You're basically going to be able to find anything in the store. If you want to read a specific item, just look it up and there's a 99% chance they will have it. Now, fortunately, unlike Alfera Bunko, this is not free. It's a store. You have to actually order the books and they send it to you. So of course there's a fee, and usually, it's not expensive, but it's a decent price. But I definitely think it's worth it if you aren't really in love with these older books and would like to read some newer stuff, because really the best thing to do is to read stuff that you're actually interested in. If you're not interested in these old books and are instead interested in newer stuff, then of course you're going to want to read those. So yeah, if you're looking for anything to read, Kinokuniya is definitely a great place to look. And finally, the last website for learning Japanese is YouTube. Now I know it might be a little bit obvious, but honestly, it's a quite underrated resource to use. I mean, there is an entire Japanese-speaking community on this website. A lot of people, when looking for Japanese content, tend to look for, these websites, TV shows, movies, stuff like that, which, is great. It's fine. It's better than nothing. It's actually a great resource to use, those websites. However, eventually, you are going to want to pick up natural speech, because natural speech is definitely different than, voice acting, listening to voice acting all day. And YouTube is quite honestly the best place to use that, except for actually moving to Japan. You could find millions of videos here. You could book any topic you want. I like baseball, so I watch baseball videos. You like computers? You can watch computer videos. You like anime? You can find videos on people talking about anime. You can find basically whatever you want on YouTube. And that is why I believe it is the best website for using it. Because the best way to learn is to do stuff you're interested in. You can find on YouTube, stuff you're interested in. You could search for whatever you want. I highly recommend using YouTube. It's a very underrated source. People use it, but people don't use it enough, I don't think. Instead they try to use it for grammar lessons and stuff like that, when in reality you should be using it for engaging in Japanese content. So yeah, those are the 12 websites that I found extremely useful for learning Japanese. I use at least like 5 of these websites on a daily basis. You're always going to need to look up stuff, so you're always going to need this dictionary website. It's never a bad idea to refresh on your grammar. Sometimes I just want to watch TV and I'll use Netflix. I actually use these websites, Wikipedia. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you guys actually found some use out of it, and I hope that you guys get the same use out of these websites that I get. Good luck in your studies.